obviously I don't blame them for that.
I would say probably the biggest misconception, as far as I'm concerned.
It's just stuff like that, and obviously you try not to get like offended or angry, but it comes across as like really patronizing sometimes.
Don't turn around and then ask somebody else just because you don't trust my own judgment.
I hate that. Okay, that is one of my biggest pet peeves.
We'll do the serious and then we'll do the absurd. I'm Juliette. I'm the Engagement Officer here at RSBC. Thanks for joining me, guys.
I'm Rufus. I'm one of the forum members, and yeah, it's good to be here.
I'm Zenny. I'm chair of the Youth Forum, and it's good to be here.
So we're gonna start big with misconceptions. So, what do you think is the biggest misconception you've come across that people have about blind and VR people? We're going to go, we'll do the big, we'll do the serious, and then we'll do the absurd.
I think probably just the fact that, like, I think I would say probably the biggest misconception, as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that blind and visually impaired people just have dreadful lives where they're dependent on carers. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. We all rely heavily on people like
sit at home crying.
Yeah, like yeah. We have these like amazing like robot dogs that like literally take us across roads, and you know, we can tell it to determine the name of a pub, and we can just walk in. And it's basically the sighted person, the blind person's equivalent to driving a car. So I'd say that's probably the most common, is that we don't have lives. We basically don't have lives.
Yeah, no, I kind of second that. I think that is like one of the biggest ones, and it's just like, oh, so does your cane find your way for you? No, it's a stick.
Yeah, it's a metal stick.
I had somebody once tell me, "You've got a very clever stick." I was like, "You sure about that? It just rolls along the ground." I don't know how clever that is. Like, I mean, I'm amazed by the fact that it hasn't been snapped in two with the amount of bus doors it's managed to wedge itself between.
Have you never had a snapped cane?
No, never.
I've never snapped one.
I've not snapped one yet, but
I've had bent ones.
That cane has been, my cane, in the year that I've had it, it has been slammed in bus doors, it has been walked on, it has been ran over.
I've got mine caught in quite a lot of bus doors.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think that I might be the problem. I'm not sure. I got it caught under a bus once. That was pretty bad. That was really stressful.
Yeah, I can imagine it was.
Yeah.
Did it survive?
It did, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
I've never yet broken one. But
no, neither have I.
I think another big misconception is that, like, I feel that blind people are always put into one category. So I feel that, like, oh, if one blind person can do it, then everyone else that's blind can do it. Or like, you know, if one blind person can't do something, then no one else, like, no other blind person can do it. Like, and I've had experience of that as well. Like, I was trying to sort out something which I won't name and shame, but they were obviously, you kind of would expect them to have more knowledge than they did. And their thing was, well, we have blind people doing stuff here. And I was like, okay, but I'm not them. And, you know, I think people kind of don't understand that, you know, yes, you're blind, but it comes with like how you were raised and what you were raised with, what kind of equipment were you given, what kind of support were you given, like, and that really does impact your kind of abilities and stuff. And I think that is a misconception, that everyone should just be able to, they just put us all into like one tiny little kind of boat when it's not like that.
I had a very similar thing a couple of years ago. I was enrolling on some course where they basically initially said no on the basis that they'd had another blind/visually impaired person on their course who hadn't benefited from it, and so they were very nearly turned around and said no.
Yeah, it's like someone will meet a blind person and go, okay, well, we all must be like this, so therefore, we tried it and it didn't work, so
obviously it's not good.
I think it's interesting what you said about family and what you have access to as well, because I guess when we talk about misconceptions, I mean, family members have misconceptions as well, right?
Definitely.
And actually do, you know, sometimes they'll learn and they're open to it, but sometimes they're not.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, I come from a background, obviously I'm South Asian, so, and I'm the only blind person in my family. And my immediate family are perfect; they're fine. But it's just like other relatives who are kind of like from Pakistan or wherever. Like I suppose like they're ignorant, and obviously I don't blame them for that. Like for example, I think one time we had some relatives over, and my mum was making some tea for them, and I didn't want tea; I wanted coffee. So I was like, okay, I'm going to make my own coffee. And there was this whole thing of like, wow, she's making her coffee. And I just sat there like,
You're an inspiration.
with my deadpan face, like, yeah, it's coffee. And it was just like, it's just stuff like that. And obviously, you try not to get like, offended or angry, but it comes across as like really patronizing sometimes. But you know, I think all you can do is just help them to understand.
Yeah, I think the thing is as well, it's because certainly my understanding of it is so many, like where people that can see, their sight is their main way of doing stuff, and I guess they just don't relate. Is the
Do you find people can't even really imagine how you could possibly do something without seeing it? Because I get that quite a lot. Like,
absolutely.
I find
Absolutely.
I was at a tube station and it had like platform announcements. And I was like, oh yeah, next train's my train. And so I was like, how do you know? And I was like, I'm sure you said it quite loudly. Because that's one of the big ones is we've all got super duper hearing.
Yeah. Oh, that's another one. That's another
I don't love that one.
Yeah. Oh, your ears must be great.
People said that about me when I was very young.
There's loads. It's just like, oh, you know, blind people, they obviously don't know how to like do anything. Like, how did you find your outfit?
So I want to talk a little bit about like advocacy, I suppose. It's kind of a big topic. I don't even know really where you start, but maybe we could think about a time when you've kind of found it all right, because you two are both pretty out there.
Yeah.
You're not two of our wallflowers. No. So maybe like a time when you've sort of been all right to do it, you felt quite confident with it, like it hasn't really crossed your mind to be worried about it.
I mean, I had a situation the other day. I'm going into work, and there's like a flight of steps to get into where I'm meant to be, and then people go, "Oh, be careful, there's a step." I was like, "Yeah, it's fine." And usually, if I tell them, say something like, "Oh, I work here, so I come here, relative, I come here often." 9 times out of 10, then they kind of. Yeah. What annoys me is when, and I had another thing where this happened at work the other day, where some woman went to me, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." But then asked my colleague, "Is he all right?" And it's like, you got that from me. Don't turn around. I mean, don't turn around and then ask somebody else just because you don't trust my own judgment.
I hate that. Okay, that is one of my biggest pet peeves is when people, when they literally see me, they see someone next to me like, oh, and they just like talk to them on my behalf. Oh my god,
that annoys me. About you.
That annoys me to no end.
Does she do the stairs? Does she want a cup of tea?
Literally.
I don't know. Why ask her?
Actually got a very useful analogy of this, and it wasn't even blind related. Have any of you guys heard of the comedian Sarah Millican?
Yes.
Yeah.
Newcott, Geordie woman.
She's a Geordie one.
Yeah. She has got a book out, and I read her book, and she was talking at one point about when she has like interactions with the public, with her fans and what, and it's like 90% of the time people are fine, but it's like obviously in that community, in the TV community, is the same as the blind community. Everybody knows everybody. Do you know what I mean? If something hasn't happened to you, it's happened to somebody that you know, and that's even if it doesn't happen to you, you're still going to be wary of it. And I listened to that bit, I was like, that is exactly what it's like when you're blind, because at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, like you say, most of the time people are all right. Or, if people don't get you to begin with, if you explain something to them, then they eventually do. They eventually do. Yeah. But you have so many people these days will go and put on Twitter or Facebook when something bad happens to them. Because it's almost like, okay, do you know what I mean? Like, we live in this world where people are like, you do kind of have to there comes a point, I think, you have to kind of put bits into perspective, especially.
You're always aware of it as well. So, like, I think I was talking to you about this after it happened. Like, I was coming into the office the other week, and we always hit people's feet with our canes, right?
Yeah.
And it's basically always fine, and to the point where I never worried about it.
Yeah.
In 3 years of being a cane user, and I gently tapped this guy's feet, and he screamed in my
Yes,
face
you
a
told me
lot
about
of obscenities.
Yeah, you
And
told me.
I was like, okay. I was like, on one hand, yay, it's been 3 years and that's never happened before, and probably won't happen again, if not more. And I remember you saying, Rue, that never happened to you.
Never.
But we do see a lot of stories about
you
it.
do,
So you're always aware, and even if you feel like you brush it off. I didn't go that way to the office for a few weeks.
No, because
it
can scare you. Like,
even though I'm like, I'm not going to see that bloke again.
You just never. You just kind of like.
You're like, no, you go that way. So the other thing I want to talk about is work, because I think it's a pretty big, all-encompassing thing, right? And you're both working. So, Rue, you've been working since January now.
Yeah, that's right.
What is it you do?
I work as a patient access coordinator for for the St Thomas's, or for the Evelina, which is the kids side of it, basically. So that's off an apprenticeship. I was offered that exactly a year ago. And again, I think it kind of comes back to like misconceptions again, because like I think my thing with people with blind people working is, I suppose a lot of people will think, well, obviously they won't work because they are blind. But the reality is that a lot of internal software just isn't cut out for JAWS or NVDA or whatever.
Yeah, all of our screen and it's not, we won't work, it's not we can't work, or it's very, very, very
we
hard.
don't have things put into place for us to work.
Yeah. So can you say what you do as well? Because you was doing an internship, you just started working.
Yeah, so I was previously doing an internship that was part-time with Sound Without Sight. It's a music organisation that supports blind creatives or aspiring creatives. But now I'm a communications assistant with Fight for Sight, who basically kind of like, they merged with an organisation called Vision Foundation last year. And we basically we kind of fund scientific research into cures and treatments for eye conditions, and then we also fund like social change projects, so like metro sports and stuff like that. Some of the stuff they're doing. So that's what we do, and I'm a communication assistant with them. And I just literally started a few weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now.
That's first few weeks ago.
It's been really good, honestly. It's been really enjoyable. I'm lucky that I've got to get straight into it rather than just kind of like waiting around, because I'm still waiting for access to work to kind of get back to me. And
we talk a lot about how many people are not in work at all, and obviously it is a huge, ridiculous number, and more of us should be in work. But I also think there's something to be said about, even for those of us who do work or are trying to work, the almost like it takes us longer to get to the same point as like sighted people. So like I didn't work for a couple of years, and then I went back to work after my sight got worse, and I was doing jobs that my friends had been doing several years ago. And it's like, yay, I'm working, it's fine, it's great, I love it. But actually, it's like there is a frustration, right?
Yeah.
That, I should have been doing this a few years ago, and therefore my earning potential was a bit limited. And if I change jobs, it's not as like, obviously changing jobs is stressful for everybody. But if I change jobs, it's like double the amount of stress for me.
At least.
What if I change jobs and then they get rid of me during my probation? Because much like you were saying about things that we hear, people can go, oh, but it's the law, you can't get sacked. And it's like, well, it's nice that you think the law's that fair, but
it really
actually, and I think it's not even just work, right, for the young people. It's also people will go to uni later, or they might be at uni a bit longer, or they might have to try going to places. Like, I think it's
still with the support. I think it's still with the support, because I've always kind of felt that after kind of like high school, and maybe even after like A levels, even kind of at that point, or like whatever you choose to do after high school, it's like you just get discarded. Like I literally, it was just weird, because like I feel like you get so much support when you're like young, providing you go to like a decent school or whatever, or like whatever. But so, and then it just kind of like it disappears, and then you're like, okay, what do I do? Like, and like then nobody kind of explains it properly. You're not sure who to go to.
Also, I think the thing is that a lot of people will have a job that they'll then move up in.
Yeah.
But certainly the issue that I've got at the minute is that the system that I use is only partially accessible. So the bits that I use it for, I can get around most of it. But if I was to move up, I would essentially not be able to work.
You wouldn't be able to, because it'd be like different kind of advanced, complex kind of
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
I've actually got a blind colleague that works at St Thomas's, and we email every now and again. I think she's sort of 40 odd, 50 odd sort of thing. She's been in the NHS for 20 plus years.
Wow.
And I emailed her, I said, how are you getting on? And she emailed back and she said, we still can't get mine to work. I've been waiting for over a year. And she's saying she is answering phones and her PA and her team are doing the rest of her job if she can't do it. And it's just like, wow, like it
doesn't occur to people at all. You talk about these problems and people really, sighted people, they really care. They're like, oh, it's terrible, and they need it. But it's like they have no sort of understanding of actually it's really common. And it's like, you don't want to come in and be negative all the time.
No.
I'm not in the business of depressing people, but it's actually like, how do you have those nuanced conversations? The All-Party Parliamentary Group on Eye Health and Visual Impairment recently carried out an online survey of 2,000 businesses. 48% of businesses surveyed did not have an accessible recruitment process, despite this being the norm. 47% did not know where to find funding to help cover additional costs for blind and partially sighted employees, such as the government's Access to Work scheme. 25% of businesses that responded said they would not be willing to make workplace adaptations or adjustments in order to employ a blind or partially sighted person. 1 in 5 employers believe that making adaptations that are required by law would be too costly.